Hi, I'm Ian. Want to live extraordinarily? It may seem difficult, but with Cebu Landmasters, it's possible. Let me show you. First, they give you hands-on service. From their sales and customer care team prior and during turnover, to their in-house property management team when you've settled in. Plus, their amenities are carefully planned and well-developed, like a clubhouse with pool, a gym, and even a chapel. You can choose from a wide range of developments: residential, offices, mixed use, townships, and even hotels. Everything for the lifestyle you want. With over 50 developments in the best locations, Cebu Landmasters is now the leading local housing developer in key Vismin cities. So you see, you can live extraordinarily when your real estate developer goes to great lengths for you. Live extraordinarily with Cebu Landmasters.
Things keep getting better because the sun you've loved is now smart.
The sun brings in a new day and everything changes.
Get used to a more seamless prepaid experience. Load via smart retailers, the GigaLife app, and the online store. Say hello to even more promos, events, deals, and partnerships under Smart. Make the most of your Giga with even more Giga promos suited to your needs. And don't worry, you get to keep your Sun mobile number as you move on to Smart, the country's fastest mobile data network. Now you see why? Welcome to Smart!
Welcome to the GigaLife. Your passions, your stories, your life. Simplified with just one app. This is the future. The GigaLife in just one tap. Experience more Giga moments when you make the smart choice. With the Philippines' fastest mobile data network. How do I know it's T1? Simple, smart ako.
Guys, here, try this. Wait, let's make this extra. Ta-da! Making spicy tofu stew? This works best.
Uy, gising! Uy, ikaw na!
Just because we need to keep our distance doesn't mean we have to stay distant. Stay close to your passions with free stories for all. Get 14 gigabytes for Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter for just 99 pesos. Share your passions, share your stories. Download the GigaLife app and choose free stories.
Kalit nga niabot ang bisita na wa gidapit. Nang hagis ang salbahis, daghan ang naglalis. Gisira ang kurtina, gipawong ang musika, gipilo ang sinina, gipatay ang suga, gitaguan ang lamisa, giluom ang katawa, gihubo ang palda, gipadaplin ang makina. Nahilom ang balak, nalawos ang buwak, nauga ang tinta, nipahuway ang nagpinta.
Asa ang mga entablado, espasyo ug teatro sa mga pasundayag. Gialihan, gibutangan og daghang barikada ug babag. Asa ang mga lawak diin magtigom ang naay ipadayag. Ang lugar diin magbansay-bansay sa ilang kahanas. Lamisa, bungbong lingkuranan, ang nahabiling handumanan. Saksi sa mga higayon nga daghang damgo ang natuman. Way hudya ka sa lungsod sa anino. Kahilom ang nagpabilin sa bag-ong sementeryo.
Mga hugpong, pundok, panagtapok, nabungkag, namingaw, way kisaw, way nagtanaw, way naminaw. Nagpabilin sa ilang panimalay ang mga tigsuporta sa kanunay. Kay ginadili ang pagsulod, paglingkod ug pagpakpak. Naghandom na lang sa sunod nga higayon, nga ang mga pasundayag magpadayon. Makabati, makadungog, sa pulong ug sa tingog. Makakita, makatilaw, sa awit ug sa duyog.
Nangita ko sa kasikas, kasamok, katawa, syagit, pakpak, ang dugo, singot, luha, laway sa gikulbaang mga awit. Ang kulba hinam nga gibati sa mananayaw. Ang pintor nga di mo tingog kay nauwaw. Nagpaminaw ko sa tingog sa magbabalak. Nasulat kaha niya ang kamatuoran luyo sa mga bakak. Asa ang mga kamot sa manunulat nga paspas-paskilat kung musuwat. Ania pa ba ang mga bayani sa teatro? Padungga ko sa mga tiglaraw, tigdisenyo.
Paminawa, pamatia, anaara sila. Wala sa lawak, intablado nga naandanta. Apan paminawa, pangitaa pagmaayo. Wala sila mibiya, naghimo lang og laing espasyo. Espasyo nga gimugna ang balak, sayaw, kanta, laing lawak nga nagsibiya sa ilang katakos kay isog. Kay way makapukan sa hugot na pagtuo, mutumaw gyud ang tiunay nga talento.
Dili ilalim ang 8 ka buwan sa mga hagit ug pagsuway. Ubanan pa sa kasakit, kapait, ug usahay pagmahay. Apan hinumdumi nga wala mausik ang imong kahago. Kay karon nga ikaw nasuwayan na sa panahon. Ikaw naligdong, nalig-on, ug madasigon. Bisan pa man nga adunay higayon nga ikaw naghilak sa hilom. Ayaw igsapayan ang milabay nga oras, adlaw ug buwan. Magsugod pag-usab ang gimahal nga naandan.
Sa kanunay ang kasing-kasing sa mamugnaon masinaptanon. Ang iyang panglantaw lapad ug puno sa paglaom. Iyang mga kamot na umol sa kabudlay o kakugi. Sa iyang handurawan naglangoy-langoy ang lain-laing mga paagi. May panahon nga iyang espasyo usa kadakong gubat. Adunay panahon maninawon sama sa bughaw lunhaw nga dagat. Apan dili ikalimod nga siya andam mo barog, mutindog, andam mo sagubang sa mga pagsulay, puno sa kaisog.
Mao nga dasig lang mga higala, ug madamlag ablihan na ang kortina. Ipadungog ang musika, habwaon ang kaban sa sinina, ug pasigaon ang suga.
Ipagawas ang lamisa, maglanog-lanog ang katawa, sulubon ang palda, saba na usab ang makina.
Malitok ang mga pulong sa balak, mabuhi ang buwak. Managhan ang basa nga tinta, mubangon ang nagpinta. Walay makapugong sa dakong pagbalikta.
Busa, padayon sa imong pagmugna. Pagkanta, pagsayaw, pagbuhat, paglaraw.
Inata ang tiil o kamot, isiga ang mata sa umaabot, andama ang kasing-kasing hunahuna ug sapot.
Tungod kay human sa dakong unos, adunay moabot nga dakong pagbalos.
Ang atong pagbalik, magbitbit og kalipay ug kadasig. Ipadayon ang pasundayag.
Mupadayon ang pasundayag.
Ngayong hapon natong tanan. Welcome back to those who have tuned in this morning in our previous session, and welcome to those who are tuning in right now. The video we saw before the countdown features a group of creatives deeply committed to the performing arts, representing what is possible when diverse and lived experiences come together in prose and motion. Cebu Design Week and the National Commission for Culture and the Arts believe in the local performing arts industry and want to support the sector that has been especially affected by the current challenges. Harnessing the creative energy and irrepressible spirit of Cebu, Two Tin Cans Theater Company and Guangming Institute of Performing Arts come together in a performance of Padayon ang Pagsudyang, a spoken word piece by Chris Everett Lato Rufulo. Since its conception 3 years ago, Cebu Design Week has advocated for the creative industries and communities here in Cebu. In October of 2019, it was a realized communal victory when Cebu officially became a UNESCO Creative City of Design. The pandemic has abruptly stripped back and postponed a lot of what we had planned as a follow-through. So this is a design problem. How do we adapt to this new situation and still push through with our plans for Cebu Design Week? Now more than ever, we have to push through. To give us a background on how Cebu Design Week has adapted to the present challenges and to formally welcome everyone to our last session of the 3-day event, here is Ms. Mary Booth, CDW overall chairperson.
Welcome to Cebu Design Week 2020, the Great ReCREATE. Threatened by the economic fallout of a global pandemic, we are called to recognize new paths, identify new leaders, and formulate a new vision. After the pandemic hit, we took a hard look in the mirror and asked ourselves, what are we here for? Our mission is to connect, create, and cultivate a network for design. We decided this year is not the year for us to call a retreat from that mission, especially after we won acceptance to the United Nations Creative Cities Network in November 2019. So, with our now very limited budget, we did what all Cebuanos are famous for, doing more with less. We reached out to our creative network and developed our Creatives in Quarantine, Stay Home, Stay Creative Facebook series, a lively and inspiring series of short videos with stories of creativity and resilience by Cebu designers. We then turned our attention to the manufacturers and exporters of Cebu with our hashtag What Cebu Can Do series. The resulting videos made during the quarantine are a testament to the quality of Cebu exporters. And we continue to expand the world of Cebu design through our affiliation with the Cebu UNESCO Creative Cities of Design Committee. As the virus continued its assault on our capacity to gather, we faced a difficult decision: what to do with Cebu Design Week 2020. Again, we decided that our creative network had ideas to share, advice, tools, and information to get Cebu going again. Cebu Design Week 2020, the Great ReCREATE, was born. We'd like to thank our sister organizer, Cebu Furniture Industries Foundation, Inc., our government sponsors, the Philippine Department of Trade and Industry, the Philippine National Commission for Culture and the Arts, the Philippine National Commission for UNESCO, the Office of the Presidential Assistant to the Visayas, and the cities of Cebu and Mandaue. Our co-presenting sponsor is Smart Communications, and our omnibus sponsor and Cebu Design Week 2020 official real estate partner is Cebu Landmasters. Special thanks go out to Congresswoman Lollipop Uwano Dizon for supporting the creative sector of Cebu. More than anything, we want to thank our trustees and the Cebu and Visayas creative community for keeping faith in what we do and supporting us with their creative output. We thank you, our audience, for giving us your time and attention. We hope you will be inspired and come away with some tools for your own journey and go into the world to create, cultivate, and collaborate for a better world.
Thank you very much for
for that warm welcome, Mary. She reaches out to us from the US, where she's currently staying with family. As she mentioned, Cebu Design Week has already rolled out programs from as early as May of this year. Let's watch the short video and see what they were.
When we started Cebu Design Week, we wanted to connect people, encourage everyone to create, and cultivate the landscape of creativity and innovation.
Expect to see new content on our social media pages, a virtual platform for creatives to sell their products and services, and other digital programs we will run to support creatives and those affected by the current situation.
CDW 2020 may be one of the most innovative and meaningful undertakings we are going to be doing in a very long time. Connect, create, cultivate.
There's so much that we can accomplish together as a community. Community rebuilding is indeed what we are looking at for this year's theme, The Great ReCREATE. COVID-19 continues to sweep the world in a frenetic sprint for damage control, bringing to the fore pre-pandemic weaknesses and accelerating megatrends at an unprecedented pace. There is a need to assess and reevaluate the role of creatives at large and how now more than ever, design and the arts are more essential in moving forward. Cebu Design Week aims to spotlight key pivot elements from different angles, from different sectors, all relevant to creatives from any industry. Our 5 sub-themes for the Design Summit sessions, where asa na si Lapu-Lapu, or where is Lapu-Lapu, where is his spirit, which we tackled Monday afternoon. Yesterday, we had opportunity from adversity, individuals and creatives, and in the afternoon, it was opportunity from adversity from the perspective of organizations and enablers, from the individual to the community. And this morning was a very fiery discussion of rethinking tomorrow, institutionalizing creativity. And our current and last session follows through with that and talks about design thinking, the rethinking tomorrow, emerging futures. In this afternoon's Design Summit session, we want to answer these questions. What does a positive future look like? And how do we get there collectively? We say a rising tide lifts all boats. How do we row and where are we rowing to? Now that the world is in reboot, humanity has a chance to innovate and redesign how it does things better in every aspect. With so much information literally at our fingertips, might one filter and focus on what solutions are best? Let us learn how the global design community is responding to the challenge of emerging resilient. Our 4 speakers cover the breadth of the creative industry's concerns, from production to management to fund generation and research, even pivoting to a completely different endeavor, still utilizing design thinking approaches and creative innovation. So let's begin. Our first speaker is the head of communications and press for H&M in the Philippines. With 19 years of experience in retail, public relations, and customer service with brands like P&G Beauty, Kimberly-Clark, Nokia, and Nike, among others, our speaker has extensive experience successfully engaging customers, media, influencers, and stakeholders in Vietnam and the Philippines. I'd like to welcome Mr. Dan Mejia.
How are you? Hi, everyone. Yeah, I hope you're all doing well. I'm happy to be here again. Thank you to the organizers of Cebu Design Week for organizing this one. And before I begin, let me tell you something about me. So I can say that with all the industries I had been to prior to H&M, I have now come full circle. But coming full circle means the cycle never stops. And it also means that I will keep on growing and changing as time goes by. I have been with H&M for almost 7 years now as head of communications. And although I am in the same position, or I've been in the same position for many years now, it's not something that I feel I'm stuck in. It's actually something that I feel I'd love to be in for as long as possible, because I believe and I know that I am able to constantly grow within my role and responsibility, and I could find so much meaning into what I could do and what I have been doing beyond what my job description tells me. And then I also have wonderful colleagues. We celebrate our individualities and commonalities, and also we have shared values and culture, and we also have a mindset focused on progress. And I also love competing, even if it's just a fun run, and which led me to compete in more serious races. I've joined the Ironman in Cebu many times, and Cebu remains to be my favorite race venue. No kidding when I say that. I'm also a marathoner. I've also done my marathon in Cebu back in 2017. Okay, and then you might wonder why I'm doing all of these. I might be crazy or bored, but believe me when I tell you that these sports and the things that I do professionally give me a lot of life and career lessons. And it makes me become mentally stronger. And it's true what they say that you become a different person after each run or race. And that is what's giving me meaning. That's what's giving meaning for me to keep on running and racing. Now, so much about me. I'm sure you've heard a lot about H&M, but not much about the H&M Group. So we are established in 1947. The man on the right is Erling Persson, our founder, and the image on the left is our first store in a small town in Sweden called Västerås. So Erling in 1947 had a simple idea. Back then, fashion was tailor-made and therefore it was expensive and it was only available to a small number of people. So Erling wanted to democratize it to make fashion more affordable and available to many people. And although that was more than 70 years ago, that is still the same business idea that we have today, only with one important difference. We don't only want to make fashion, but sustainable fashion, affordable and available to many people. We are also a family of 8 brands, so H&M being our flagship brand. We also have COS, Weekday, Monkey, H&M Home, and other stories, Arquette, and Found. And around the world, we have 4,981 stores in 74 markets and e-commerce in 51 markets, including the Philippines. Our products are made in over 2,300 supplier factories around the world, and we don't own any of them. And H&M alone has nearly 800 million customer transactions per year. When it comes to our colleagues, 74% of employees are women and 26% are men. Women hold 72% of management positions and men are at 28%. And over 179,000 employees work for the H&M Group today, of whom over 1,000 are here in the Philippines. So what does this mean? With this global presence, we come in touch with various communities and environments and certainly leave an impact, good and bad. We work across our entire value chain, from how we design to how raw materials are made or grown, how final products are manufactured, all the way to the production to retail and customer use. And that is why we've set a bold vision, and that is to lead the change towards circular and renewable fashion while being a fair and equal company. Our business and operations are to contribute to the Agenda 2030, or better known as the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We want to change towards a circular, fair, and equal fashion industry. We also want to contribute to long-term positive change for the people and the environment throughout our value chain. And our long-term approach means we can support innovations and make scalable. And now, by having customers around the world, we know that we can create large-scale demand for circular solutions. So let me present to you a few of our circular business models that we have launched since 2013. We have something called the Garment Collecting Program. In 2013, H&M became the first major fashion brand to launch a global garment collecting initiative. And this means you can hand in your unwanted clothes or garments, and then they can be given new life through reuse or recycling. If you've been to any H&M stores in the Philippines or maybe outside, you would have noticed this garment collecting box beside the till point. Usually it's in the ladies department. And this gives our customers a sustainable option to send their unwanted garments to. And since then, so many other brands have followed, which is really fantastic. The purpose is that we should avoid being dependent on our finite virgin resources. And since we are talking about the circular economy, we should be able to achieve both things. Number one is to avoid being dependent on our finite resources, and at the same time, avoid these unwanted garments from ending up in the landfill. So what happens is that we keep on using the same textiles and garments to be used over and over and over again. And then also very recently in the Philippines, we launched Let's Reuse. It's a project encouraging our customers to bring their own reusable bags when shopping, and at the same time, reduce the waste, reduce the usage of paper bags, which is actually more harmful than plastic bags. By charging our customers for every paper bag, we can make them stop and think and eventually and hopefully change their mindset when shopping. So the charge is 2 pesos. And if, for example, you are in the mall and you needed to buy something, but you forgot to bring your reusable bag, you don't have to feel bad as well, because the 2 pesos will go to Waves for Water in the Philippines, which will support clean water projects in many local communities in the country. And then our latest circular business model is called Loop with a triple O. It's a garment to garment machine where customers can go to the store. You can go to the store with your unwanted or worn out garment, and then you can feed it to the machine to be turned into a whole new garment. How fantastic is that? So right now it's available in one store in Stockholm in Sweden. And of course, the goal is that we should be able to scale this and make it available to more markets in the coming years. So we are constantly exploring new technology and innovations to help transform the fashion industry as we are working to reduce the dependency on virgin resources. And we believe that getting customers on board is key to achieve real change. And we are so excited to see what Loop will inspire. Now, to appreciate this better, let's have Lovely share the video. Okay, so we have piloted many circular business models, although they are small and available in a few markets at the moment. Our aim is to scale these models and make it available to all or many more markets in the near future. It's all about thinking big, acting small so you can do it now, but scaling it up really fast. So the question remains, what does a positive future look like? A positive future is definitely about having a long-term positive impact on both the communities, meaning the employees, our colleagues, our customers, the people, the environment, and also on our business. And circularity will make it possible for anyone or any company to keep on growing, but with respect to both the people and our planet. And that is the only way, or circularity is the only way you can put meaning and growing together in the same line. But for us to do this, we need to change and we must change. Let me go to the next slide. So how do we drive this change, you might ask? At the core of this presentation is a simple but very powerful idea: meaningful growth. It's based on a firm belief that the more meaningful our presence in the world is, the more we will grow. And the more we grow, the more meaningful difference we can make. And it's the belief that meaning and growing will fuel each other instead of opposing each other. It means that we will seek growth opportunities that are based on things that are meaningful to us, to our customers, and to the world. And it also means that we will now move away from opportunities that are not. So, what is meaningful? I think that the most powerful thing about our company is our shared sense of meaning in what we do. We might use different words to describe it, but we always come back to the same things. It's about leaning our industry towards a sustainable future. It's about empowering our communities, our colleagues, our customers to progress and be proud of who they are. And it's about doing it in ways that grow our business so we can keep investing in a better tomorrow. So when we face a difficult decision, or maybe examine a new opportunity, or simply stand at a crossroad, we should always come back to the same question: is it meaningful? And how can we make it meaningful? Before I end, let me show you one more video. Thank you.
Everything around us is changing. What is true today may not be tomorrow. We are driven by the future and the constant changes around us. And so we change too. But at the end of the day, there are some things that stay true no matter how fast the world is moving. So here's what we know. We know fashion. We know good quality design at great prices. We know how to provide it in the most sustainable way possible. We know creativity and craftsmanship. And we know we are the place to turn to when you want just that. We know our customers. We know what they want, often even before they do. We know our people. We know you are the ones that make us who we are. We know we want to be a place you can be proud of. And we know that by providing the tools and opportunities to grow, you will do great things. We know we want to be the best alternative out there for our customers and our colleagues. A place with people from all over the world. A place that empowers people and where everyone is equal. A place where we laugh and fight together. A place where we can be brave together, strong together. And we know change. We know the industry needs to change. And that we, with our power and our skill, can change fashion and lead the way to a sustainable fashion future.
That was an amazing presentation. Thank you, Dan. Growth entails a holistic outlook and a burgeoning commercial expansion necessitates accountability and responsibility from the design level to make it inclusive for customers to be part of the circular endeavor. Our next speaker builds dreams with his communities in his own lab. He is a Venezuelan urbanist specializing in digital fabrication and its implications on the future cities. He's the co-founder and director of FabLab Barcelona at the Institute for Advanced Architecture of Catalonia, IAAC, and is a founding partner of the Fab City Global Initiative. He brings to the table future building from the context of a post-colonial creative. He is also the director of the recently launched Master in Design for Emergent Futures at IAAC. Let's welcome Mr. Tomás Díez.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Kai, for the introduction. It's for me a pleasure to be sharing with you today some of my work, which I think is going to complement the presentation of Dan a little bit. Let me share my screen first of all. Okay, you should see this, and I'm gonna go in full presentation. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the journey. I think like the way in which I wanted to approach this presentation today is in the form of a personal journey. You know, I have been introduced of what I do at FabLab Barcelona, the Master in Design for Emerging Futures, and also most recently in the Meaningful Design group in Bali. I will tell you a little bit about that afterwards. But my personal story is this. I am from Venezuela, known for a beautiful nature. I've been living in Barcelona for the last 15 years. But since the pandemic, and also thanks to a wonderful event that was hosted at Cebu, I'm now in Bali, I'm now in Indonesia, where I used to serve. So I've learned during these years that the current way in which our production and consumption works is based on very unfair relationships. The way in which our cities consume products today follow a very simple logic. They import products in, and they are turning to trash, and they are sent out somewhere else, right? And these are logics of extraction. If you look at this map, it's actually a significant moment in history that transformed our lives. Is when the route for the West and East Indies was discovered. It's a discovering, quote unquote, of America, and also the starting point of a relationship of exploitation between the West and elsewhere, right? It's the extraction of resources in order to make companies grow infinitely and generate profit at all cost. By that time, in the 17th century, more or less, the main thing was nutmeg. It was so crazy that even the Dutch even traded an island in Indonesia with the British for an island in the New World, in America. And the island that was traded, that was owned by the Dutch, and they traded with the British, it was Manhattan, now New York. Fast forward, we changed our addictive patterns, and now it's not nutmeg, but oil. The oil is what powers the world today. It's in our clothes, it's in our energy resources, it's in our devices, it's in everywhere, in the light that we turn on almost every day. The way in which we consume today is based also on a unfair social relationship with people. Cheap labor actually allows us to buy really cheap things, which are not really cheap. We're actually loaning, we're taking a loan from the future, which actually we're starting to see how it's starting to demand to pay back. And the recently changes of the climate and then the future ones that are coming are gonna show us that a world in which we just move things using oil is not viable, because it could have very, very bad consequences. And I showed you that Venezuela was known because its beautiful nature. Now the extraction of mines and depletion of a forest by mining of gold and other minerals is destroying our nature, as well as the oil spitting in our beaches. The way Barcelona, which is beautiful about architecture, is being developed in the last years, is creating the collapse of our very own air that we breathe. And also Indonesia, which you have the image of a pristine waters, is becoming the collector of the plastic waste that actually plastic is based on oil. So there are things that we are sure about. The way in which we have structured our global production system during the last 250 years, more or less, is helping to emit more carbon dioxide, and it's also increasing the temperature in the planet. So what this causes is that the way in which things change that used to be very predictable. We have agriculture because there was a very constant climate and change of the climate in the world, and we could predict seasons, and we could predict when it rains, when it doesn't rain, and so on to actually grow food. It's now going to change dramatically, and then the nature is going to change as fast as fashion. So it will require a different approach to how we respond and how resilient we are, while at the same time, we need to change our dependency of oil and also our dependency of the very extractive relationships that, again, I want to insist, our current consumers are based on. But at the same time, we live in a fascinating time where technology advancements are converging. It's not only about having supercomputers in our phones, but actually we have this supercomputer in our pockets that are connected with global networks of knowledge. So now we could be speaking for anyone in the world, and then we can be exchanging bits of information and knowledge around the world as well. Add to that the potential that machine learning and artificial intelligence is going to add to manage very complex data sets and make sense of large amounts of information that is now being exchanged through the internet. And add on top of that, the capacity that synthetic biology is adding to the current power that we have, since we're going to be able to basically program life or create life, right? So maybe some of you are familiarized with 3D printing. This is very paradoxical that a 3D printer is printing a fish, but believe me or not, if we keep putting plastic and putting oil in our oceans, 3D printers are not going to be able to print fishes in order to make your sushi plates. But the digital fabrication technologies are not only 3D printers. This is the image of a Fab Lab, and it's the work that I have been doing for the last 15 years, is making accessible 3D printers, but also other technologies that allow people to be more resilient and allow people to create things that don't exist, to share designs around the world on how those things are made, and invent, in a way, the future that is still not here. The beautiful thing about these Fab Labs is that they are not just isolated spaces. These are, right now, over 2,000 Fab Labs around the world that have a similar infrastructure. So if you go to a Fab Lab in Cape Town, or you go to a Fab Lab in Amsterdam, or in Santiago de Chile, or in Manila, or in Tokyo, they're going to have similar equipment. So it means that you can share knowledge across the globe in a common language. And then instead of sending a product from South Africa to Russia, you can just send a file to be made locally. Fab Labs have been growing exponentially, similarly to the computing power that has been growing around the world. But also, they have been spreading knowledge and showing people new ways of learning about technology and new ways to learn about how to interact with the built environment. The Fab Labs have been somehow created by accident, but they are pretty much tied with the MIT course, How to Make Almost Anything, right? So this has been a very successful course in one of the most prestigious and advanced universities in the world. But the challenge that we had here is that if the Fab Labs are growing, how we make accessible this education to almost anyone. So the Fab Academy is a program that is directed by Neil Gershenfeld, and we have been running since 2009. And basically what we do is that on top of the Fab Lab network, we offer the opportunity for anyone to have MIT level education without having to go to MIT, actually attending to classes from their labs, of course, being connected online, but also prototyping offline and creating projects. Some of these projects, they are, of course, in the world of fashion. They are in the world of agriculture. These are aquaponic systems to produce food at the local level. We have designed entire spaces. This is an open source restaurant. Basically, you can download the furniture when you go for lunch. We have made houses, complete houses that are able to produce double the energy that they consume. And these are houses made out of wood, and they change their shape depending on the place in the world that they are located. or low-cost and open-source drones, beehives that contain sensors inside, so allow us to monitor what is causing the colony collapse disorder. Bees are responsible for 30% of the food that we eat. Sensor devices that allow people to produce data in the city about how pollution is increasing. This is a Smart Citizen project, which I am also co-founder. And so in a way, we have been enabling people to learn how to make things differently, but also we are also learning at the same time that this is going to transform the way we design. And there are new tools and new principles that need to be incorporated in these logics, since in order for us to understand that we have been operating in a very industrial mindset for too long. So when you have the introduction of the internet and the accessibility of information and knowledge around the world and in your pocket, and when you have supercomputers connected to machines, design changed fundamentally, right? So this is something that we want to work in our educational programs, right? And I'm going to explain a little bit about it. The current industrial system is based, it was started like a highly centralized model. It is now becoming more decentralized, but our aim is actually to think about how it could be more distributed. So similarly to computers connected to the internet are able to share information around the world from wherever you are, we imagine that cities and the regions are able to produce locally using local materials what they need using designs that travel globally. This means thinking about design in a circular or a spiral way. It means like not having design operating into silos. It means that citizens are not just consumers, they are also people that they know what they want, they can create, and they can be your co-designers in your company. These are things that we have been working with IKEA, for instance, in the past. So it also means that design needs, we don't need only devices and gadgets and technologies. They need to land in a specific context in neighborhoods. And this is something that we're working in Barcelona and other cities in the world to understand that the city can have an ecosystem for local production, material flows that we can reinsert into the current production capacity of the city. So the way in which we are exploring this is trying to offer our students the tools for them to understand the complexity in which the world is changing, turn that complexity into the driving force in order to prototype and design new interventions in the present in order to imagine possible futures that it can create. Right now, we're seeing how, for instance, something as positive as having machine learning, it can be great for us to solve, or to sequence DNA in order to solve or to develop like a really interesting approach to medicines, but also it could be used in order to manipulate entire democratic elections. So we need to make sure that technology is not only owned by private interests, but it's owned also by people for the people. So some of the projects that our students have been working in the Master in Design for Emerging Futures are related to using these technologies with a different approach in order to create speculative scenarios about the futures that we can enable today and that we can make happen with the joint efforts with these global collaborations that Fab Labs and global networks offer. So Nicolas has been training mycelium in order to degrade cigarette butts, which is one of the main pollutants in the world. Gabor has been working on fighting the economy of attention by incentivizing people to give the computing power of their phone in order to solve big challenges of humanity, like for instance, using parts of the computing power of your phone in order to find extraterrestrial life. And while doing that, you get some income where you can pay your dinners. Alexandra has been working in the development of bio-design kits that help kids in the high school to learn about bio-design, as well as Oliver working on bringing machine learning for kids to learn how to play with artificial intelligence since they are very young. So I wanted to share, I said before that I didn't have a video, but I'm going to share this video and I hope I can be heard. So has been a journey so far. We are in a third year of our program, but out of that great opportunity that I had to be in Cebu, participating in the Making Futures conference. Again, thank you, Rhea, for the invitation. It has opened up like a new chapter or kind of a future work that I'm starting to develop, and this is a very early stage what I'm going to share with you. So this is like a very deep philosophical question about what it means for us, to build the future together. What it means, how something has meaning to us, right? And I'm evocating, the typical myth of Plato's cave, which probably some of you are familiar with. But what I'm trying to say here is like we are in this very interesting moment in which I believe that philosophy, and not only Western philosophy, but different type of philosophies need to start approaching design and rethink fundamentally what is the purpose of what we're doing. I think we're following just economic growth and following profits and following kind of I believe very egoistic drivers as designers. So I think like it's a very interesting moment given the current pandemic to really recalibrate the purpose of designers. Because we're different, being here in Bali has taught me that, there are mindsets and there are ways of looking at the world that many of the times are imposed and we're just following, trends or following directions of things without questioning them, right? So being in a different context has also me that meaning is different for many cultures and we have to respect that, right? I hope that, my heart goes that an island like Bali, but also any community in the world keeps as diverse as it is, and it's just not filled by resorts and this kind of insane occupation by the West of places that are sacred for many people. The question is how we make, how we take the progress that we make until today, and we make it join these new technologies without alienating the local culture. People like Ron Eglash, which I highly recommend you to read, has made some research about this, and he explains the difference between making medicines with proprietary license or electronic devices in comparison with other type of developments. I think that's because we have probably a few time to finish. I think that it's important to go deep and understand that technology not always alienates. It's the purpose that we give to technology that alienates, right? And he explains some of the experiments he has been doing in West Africa with the development of batik technologies, right? Using computer software and also 3D printing machines to make batik molds. And also this could become a way, a model. But I just wanted to finish by saying that there is a potential right now to really transform the way we approach design and also the way we produce and consume. That is not only about introducing new technologies, but also changing the fundamental principles on how intellectual property works, which are the property of the materials, of the technologies used in the local production ecosystems. And also, I believe that it's a great opportunity to rethink the role of technology in order to avoid the alienation of cultural diversity and actually to do the opposite, to foster cultural diversity and not to impose patterns that are sometimes following just economic profit. So if we could manipulate an entire world to follow like a nonsensical way of extracting resources from nature and turning them into products that most of the time we don't need them, I think that we have also the power to shift that back and really look to a brighter future or brighter futures and give them the right meaning that each one of us want to give it. So thank you very much again. And I'm sorry that I actually extended the time that I was given. Thank you.
No problem. No problem at all, Tomás. We feel you. We feel you. There is a special kind of empowerment in knowing that by making, in the process of mindful making, and we call back to yesterday's session of mindfulness with Ms. Carambola of Muni, you can affect tremendous change. Before we proceed to our third speaker, we would like to thank our government partners who made Cebu Design Week 2020 possible. the Office of the Presidential Assistant for the Visayas, the Department of Trade and Industry Region 7, the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, the UNESCO National Commission for the Philippines, the local governments of Cebu City and Mandaue City, Congressman Lollipop Uwano Dizon, and the Arts, Culture, and Creative Industries Bloc, or ACCIB. These organizations and individuals know that the creative industries in the Philippines has to be supported and cultivated for stronger economy and a livable society. Without further ado, let us proceed with the third speaker. Our third speaker joined the founding team of the Design Singapore Council and helped chart its vision and mission. Currently, as the Deputy Executive Director, he is responsible for the development of new initiatives. Among them are design for innovation, strategy development for enterprises, and growing the design sector in Singapore to a robust entity all of its own. Help me welcome Mr. Jack Xiao. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Very happy to be here, and congratulations for the wonderful programming for the last 3 days at the Cebu Design Week. Let me try to share my screen. So I'm going to do something slightly different from Dan and Thomas. I'm kind of representing the Design Singapore Council. So I'll probably give a little introduction to what the council does. But before that, maybe a small nugget about myself. I've been with the council for a long while. People usually come to ask me and ask, what makes you stay with the council for such a long time? And my response most of the time is really about seeing change and having the ability to effect change. I think small wins are good, but big wins takes time, right? And one of the, I suppose, trust of the council is really about bringing design to the masses, to the community. So the picture that you see here is an event that we supported as part of the Singapore Design Week to engage communities through the more traditional clans, which is something unusual that you would not think of design being part of it. But many of our clans are facing, well, in some ways, membership that is kind of going smaller and smaller, and they need to redesign themselves essentially. So in my talk here, 3 parts to it, about the council, about a program that we ran just in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic situation, and maybe go through some of the projects that we have supported. In this photograph that you see back there in the background, where there's a big shelter there, that shelter is actually totally, well, in terms of design, is totally computer generated. And every one piece of those things that you see there is actually laser cut through the computer program as well. And this is kind of proof that even with current technology of rapid prototyping, useful and an amazing structure could come of something that is almost unthinkable previously. If you look at the scale of it, those little people down there are really small, right? Yeah, this is one of our biggest pavilion built out of a 3D printing technology. Yeah. So about Design Singapore Council, we have a vision that was set out in 2016 for 2025 that would like to see Singapore to be an innovation-driven economy. But that, I think, is not quite enough when it comes to design, because I think design is also about emotional connection. So we would like to see that Singapore becomes a lovable city by design as well. That is somewhat reflected in our mission. We look at the design sector, and we look at helping Singapore use design for innovation and growth, and eventually to make life better through design. So this second point about helping Singapore use design for innovation and growth is a case in point when I mentioned earlier that big wins takes time. We have tried almost more than 10 years back to help our Singapore businesses, especially the small and medium enterprises, to understand the value of design, how design could help them deliver better products, better customer experience. And it is only very recently, in the last 1 year or 2, that we are beginning to see more keen interest and businesses actually trying to use design consultancy to do that kind of work. Previously, I think we have been having a lot of issue in terms of the understanding of design being very superficial, the understanding of design being something that's good to have and not critical. But I think with this pandemic, it has kind of accelerated that need to use design to understand your end users, your end customers for business to actually to pivot in these very difficult times. So I think those big wins are the ones that keep me in the council in a way. These are the three key kind of areas that as council we kind of have our job cut out. One is really about as a base, building the talent, getting our designers to be industry ready. All the more so nowadays, they need to be much multidisciplinary in a sense, to be able to understand beyond design itself. And then second is a piece I mentioned earlier. It's really how do we create demand and making sure that our businesses understand the true value of design and to use them and use design to, I suppose, to make business better, and not just that, to make life better for the end customers. And the last piece is really about developing the Singapore design brand. And this is the one that we hope that we're able to share more often, not just within Singapore, but across the region as well. So we're very happy to be part of this Cebu Design Week. The definition of design, at least from the council's perspective, has been evolving. I think most people understand design to be product, to be craft, to be visual arts, visual communication, fashion, furniture. But I think all the more in the last few years, I think there's a convergence of some of these practices that actually relates to developing a more holistic experience for you and I. And that requires an understanding across all the design discipline, as well as to be able to understand your stakeholders and end users to deliver a good service and a good experience at the end of the day. So that we call the emerging practices. With the evolving needs and I suppose demand from the society as well as businesses, we realize, especially with this onset of the pandemic, that I think designers in Singapore should take the time to look at how they could strengthen their value proposition and the ability to respond to some of these global issues beyond the kind of bread and butter kind of survival mode that is about keeping the jobs out there and keeping the businesses afloat in a sense. And we think that they probably need a little bit help in terms of doing that piece of work, which we think is valuable in terms of delivering impact to the community and to the society. And hence we launched this new program called the Good Design Research Program. Essentially is to help our designers to have the resource and the time to look deeper into some of these impact areas where they could provide some solutioning. So how do we help our designers in this area? As part of the program, there is a sponsorship. We throw open calls twice a year to kind of receive proposals from the industry itself, which will then be selected by an independent design expert panel to gauge where some of this project may create the best and the most impact. At the same time, we also run a program alongside with the sponsorship to help our designers linked to different various knowledge partners, technology, people, experts with the latest ideas. And lastly, it's really about building that community and help them to connect to the right people in the exploration. There are 3 tracks that we thought was useful as a kind of starting point to understand how this exploration could take place. So for the first one, it's about design impacting identity and culture. I think there's a lot of that to be explored, especially craft. I mean, craft not just within Singapore, but also across the region in Southeast Asia as well. And then number 2 is really about systems and processes. And in that area, I think it reflects some of the topics that Dan and Thomas has brought up earlier on, which is really about sustainability and circular economy, where Singapore designers could understand that a little bit more. And the third piece here that we're looking at is really about technology, right? Everybody's going digital. I think we have no choice but to go digital somehow. but there must be a way of going digital without losing the human connection in a way. And hence we have the third track to support some of this new technology exploration. In our very first call in March, we had overwhelming response from the industry. More than 60, over 70 projects we received, but we've narrowed down to 7 projects that we are supporting that we feel has got the potential to deliver the impact. Some of these projects that I'm going to go through may not necessarily resonant with you in what is a typical design project, and that's because we have also widened the definition of a design project in a sense. So the first one I'm going to talk about here is about the future of work. I think this is something that in our current situation, we all know that post-COVID, it will not be the same when we go back to work, right? So I think this is the exploration to understand what does work mean in the future in terms of integrating remote work. It will not go back to the good old days where everybody kind of in the morning rush hour, 8 a.m. go to the office, and then at 6, 7 p.m. you knock off and go back home. That will still happen to some extent, but it will probably be a more hybrid approach, right? So this is where we hope to help our designers to understand the issue deeper and to be able to propose some possibilities. And then the second project that you see here is really about designing the intangible. It is really about how do you bring your community together through design as a process to deliver a social good. And I think this is a very new field of design that I think we know has got a lot of impact that has not been spoken about, but has got a lot of potential as well. So we're trying to use this program to actually encourage some of this more, I suppose, newer thinking. And then these projects that you see here is really about, I suppose, looking at materials and how to make design more sustainable. Not just design itself, but also the sourcing of materials, right? The middle one that you see here is really about one of our design firms trying to look at how do we use local wood as part of the material source for design to be a much more sustainable way of I suppose, using the thousands of trees that Singapore fell every year. And if we do not make use of those material, it will just go to waste, right? And the other one I think most people are familiar with is that for all production, there will be offcuts. And the good question is, what happens to those offcuts? There must be a better way to make use of them. So these are some of the projects that we are supporting in terms of exploration that will help the Singapore ecosystem. And then this tool you see here is really about looking at new materials, new technology. On the left, I think we are familiar with, I suppose, mass consumption, but nowadays there's a little more talk about mass customization. But how do you customize for the mass? Which is where one of this fashion design studio is coming in to look at kind of on-the-spot pleating that can be done in the shop to be customized to the customers that comes in. So you can actually get your pleated clothes within half a day that you're shopping with this brand called Jinli. And there's something that you can push out, I think, probably later part of this year. So there's something interesting that we hope to see a good line coming out from there. And then this last one that I want to share with you is really about, everybody knows about food waste, right? But then in the pandemic, everybody kind of went to takeaway, right? Delivery instead of eating in-house. And it's not just the food, right? It's actually the amount of plastic containers that is being used in this process that kind of triggered, I suppose, this project to kind of they are trying their best to kind of mitigate the impact on the environment for such a new way of consuming food, right? And then I think there are many kind of experiments as well as technology involved in sustainable materials. I think here, what they're trying to do is to find the right type of materials and be able to design around it to be able to support the way the local consumption of, for Singapore, we have a lot of hawker food. And many of times this hawker food are usually wrapped in styrofoam boxes and you take away with a break bag. But is there a better way, right, to make it cost effective and to make it sustainable? I think that kind of covers all the projects that we hope to support. And as a council, I think we see ourselves as the facilitators. We hope that our designers could be practicing in the forefront of understanding some of the current global issues, very much like what Dan and Thomas are already doing, right? And we hope more of our local designers could kind of be able to reach that kind of discourse and experimentation. So I end my presentation here. This is what I think I keep reminding myself as part of the council, to be bold, to be open, and to be the catalyst. And I'm sure every one of you could be a catalyst here as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Yao. It seems like the key to consistent change for the better is designing systems that uplift community good as well as individual lives. Our fourth speaker will talk to us about such upliftment through creativity and grit. She was a panelist at the 2018 World Economic Forum in Davos to talk about e-commerce for development. She now works with IKEA Philippines, strategizing direct impact engagements with Filipino communities. To know more on how she and her organization are changing the world one woven pillow at a time, I'd like to call on screen Ms. Reese Fernandez. Reese, welcome to Cebu Design Week.
Good afternoon. Hi, Kay. Good afternoon to all of you. I'm gonna share my screen as well, and I'm sure it's good there. Okay. So hi, good afternoon, good day to all of you. It is such an honor to be part of Cebu Design Week and to be part of this group of experts who have shared their very interesting and inspiring insights from the perspective of global companies and thought leaders. So I hope in my own little way, using our small company as an example, I hope to be able to share some insights too that could be useful for those of you here who are SMEs. And so here is our story. 13 years ago, we started Rags to Riches, or R2R, with the purpose of creating sustainable opportunities for artisans from urban poor communities. So we do this through creating and designing products that are intentional and sustainable. So today, well, pre-COVID, which is now apparently a history marker, we are a fashion and design house empowering community artisans in the Philippines. So for the past 13 years, we were able to provide artisans with fair and regular livelihood, and we have also conducted skills training and other kinds of modules to just upgrade the skills and knowledge of our artisan partners. So when we started, we collaborated with some of the most amazing fashion designers in the Philippines, such as Rajo Laurel, Amina Aranaz Alunan, Oliver Tolentino, and artist Olivia Daboville. And now we also have our in-house design team led by Christian Serra, who is like a unique snowflake of a designer with decades of experience in product construction and who is also incredibly open to new ideas. We were also able to get the support of amazing advocates from all over the world and secure partnerships with corporations. We're also quite fortunate as we started our online store about a decade ago, and it has been growing and doing well since. But we do have our own fair share of near-death experiences as a company. So we have seen a lot of pivots and changes. And going through all of them became like our dry run and drills that gave us the muscles to power through 2020. So throughout those 13 years and even up to now, while we have changed our processes, products, and systems, our purpose or our why remains the same. So our why is our guide, and our most difficult times in the past actually gave us foresight and stamina to pivot from day zero when the lockdown started, which is how I'm seeing 2020 for a lot of us. Now, it's very difficult, it's very challenging, but I hope we're also developing some muscles so that in the future when we encounter challenges and difficulties, we also can deal with them in some way. So because we had to pause our bags, we used to make bags, we still do, but during the lockdown day zero, we repurposed our sewing machines to make masks and essentials like clothes that you can take from lounging to Zoom conferencing like the one I'm wearing now. Our artisans also use their weaving frames to make home accessories such as pillows. So while the world was kind of on pause and fashion as an industry was reeling and recalibrating, R2R was still able to keep livelihood going. And we even opened our North America online store last October 1, which is r2rshop.com. So it is an effort to expand to other markets in order to create more opportunities for our artisans and of course to also diversify our market. So to be honest, R2R is quite in a good position this year. I think a lot of us started this year with so much optimism. We started the year with the news that we will be the official sewing services provider of IKEA Philippines, which is the biggest IKEA in the world. And we were prepared for projects and collaborations and collections that we have never done before. But then 2020 happened. Well, 2020 is here and the pandemic happened. We were able to survive this year because of all of our past experiences and also our current position. So I understand that not all companies have the resources to survive this year, and so we all just try our best given our unique situations. So some situations are dire, definitely, and many are in pain, but there is a silver lining. So if you recall, I mentioned earlier that we have been through near-death experiences as a company. Those years were painful, but while those years were painful, those were also the years when we were able to clarify our vision, fix our business model, and strengthen our values and culture. So these are opportunities in crisis. We can build from this rubble. I really believe that. And we can build a better normal together. So there are some things that we have learned from the most difficult times in our lives and that we have applied during 2020. And these lessons enabled and empowered us to look at the future with a little bit more hope and optimism. So first, we have learned that the best time to take small steps and experiments is during great resets, when the rules no longer apply. So the classic example of this is how many fashion companies pivoted to making face masks almost right away when the demand for face masks went up. So in the past, face masks are not really considered a fashion accessory, but that rule no longer applies. So for R2R, we started making face masks on day 1 of the lockdown. Prior to that, we had no experience producing masks at all. But we tried anyway, tested the masks while physically distancing, and facilitated logistics using motorbikes and bicycles. The world has changed in the last few months and accelerated a lot of the trends that experts have predicted will happen in a few years. Thomas and Jax mentioned a lot of these a while ago. So fortunately within R2R, because we have been so used to challenges and pivots, we were also not averse to changing the way we do things, even if they have worked before. See, the statement, "we have always done it this way," really needs a review and a serious revamp, not just for us to survive, but also for us to build a better normal. A lot of our issues and environmental problems of today are coming from the decisions of the past. So we all know that. And many of us refuse to change that before. And our future will be filled with practices that we have realized during this time. So hopefully we can keep an open mind about new ways of doing things. So one example is this photo. That photo in your screen in front of you. I took it using a tripod and a Bluetooth remote control. Don't be deceived. I did so many takes before I got the right ones. And so for our advocates, for our other collections, they did the same. So we sent us photos during using our guidelines. So we have always thought that photo shoots must be done a certain way. But because of physical distancing, we needed to find ways to do things differently. So this particular way of doing things did not just keep us physically distanced, it was less costly, more intimate, emitted less carbon footprint, and gave us really interesting content. Speaking of building a better future through making better decisions today, we can also redesign products and systems with people and the planet in mind. So as designers, we don't just design to make things look good. We design to make lives better. The products we design are built on top of the systems that we can also design to become more compassionate and fair towards people and less damaging to the environment. And guess what? Redesigning better products and systems could also make good business sense. So this photo is some of our artisans going to our workshop on their bikes. Since public transportation is scarce and challenging, we decided to design a bike loan program to make the journey easier. So through designing this program, we were able to continue the business and livelihood while keeping ourselves physically distanced from each other. Recently, since inventory sellability was also difficult to predict, we also designed our selling process accordingly. So I think Jax mentioned this earlier, that we don't just design for aesthetic, or we don't just design with like the look in mind. We also design processes. So we designed our selling process according to the situation. We treated our raw materials as ingredients, if you ask, that we can turn into a variety of products that we'll just make when customers order them. So it is a made-to-order system that honestly is not new, but is also not that intuitive in a world where instant gratification is a norm. So based on a Forbes article written last April about the pivots of the supply chains of fashion, made-to-order and customizations attaches more meaning to products, and return rates are comparatively low. So for a more discerning consumer base with generally more limited buying power, their purchases must have meaning, purpose, and multiple ways of wearing. So from a small enterprise point of view, made-to-order also reduces the risk of overstocking inventory and gives us more time to produce with intention, and helps us plan production with as less waste as possible. Other systems are also very important, such as circular design, and Tomás, Jax, and Dan all mentioned this. Simply put, for us, it is a system where products are designed not just with usability in mind, but with product life cycle in mind. This is necessary in order to create businesses of the future that really makes lives better. A McKinsey article published last June discussed that people want to buy from companies that have a mission and those that communicate this authentically. In R2R, we have always believed in sharing the stories behind our company and products, even more so now. We want to remind our advocates that the products they wear are made by actual people who are fulfilling their own hopes and dreams through livelihood. So now is not the time to go silent or be tone deaf to the issues that are bubbling up the surface. Now is the time to communicate with compassion. People will remember the voices who empathize with them and made this time a little bit more hopeful, meaningful, and kind. So these are just a few of the things that we are doing now to prepare for the future and also shape the future into a better one. We are indeed living in a history-making time. People will look back to this time and study the decisions that we have made and how these affect the future. So this is one of the best times in history to write a better future that is kinder, more sustainable, and more intentional. Thank you very much, and I'm glad to be here today.
That was lovely. Miss Reese, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. In the face of rising odds that seem to us be ever out of favor, we take the metaphor of rags to riches pieces. Grit, authenticity, and consistency can weave support systems that all lift the boats. To our panel discussion, which will follow shortly, I would like to remind everyone that if you've got any questions, to write them down. Our team is on standby and are collating it. We will be reading them out, time permits, all of them. That would be great. Later on, no? I'm sure you have a couple of questions you want to personally ask our speakers. All right. To help bake our insights into this discussion, I would like to introduce our very distinguished moderator. She has spearheaded programs that have been instrumental in transforming industries and have become international development templates, particularly in the areas of branding, design management, and the creative economy. Help me welcome Executive Director of the Design Center of the Philippines, Ms. Rhea Matute. Good afternoon, ma'am. Hello.
Good afternoon, Kay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today and this afternoon, no? After the wonderful sharing of Dan, Tomás, Jax, and of course, Reese, all very inspiring stories and really, amazing stories of resiliency and, just a wonderful vision for the future. So Dan shared with us on a corporate level how to do this great reset and taking the steps toward circularity, coming from fast fashion, it is indeed quite a laudable step taken. And then, of course, for Tomas and the Fab City initiative, the Making Futures, as well as the Emerging Futures initiative, and as well as what they're doing in Bali, no? And really just rethinking and redefining, and like how to move us forward through the marriage of technology, and as well as maximizing the potential of the human mind. And then, of course, Jack's, Singapore has always been, in this region, a leader in pushing design beyond the usual definition, which is designed to make things beautiful. And even in pushing, really like developing a culture of design and design to improve life. And then, of course, Reese, really, it's I guess you're our poster child for social enterprise. It's really rags to riches that put it in the mainstream, and really got everyone aware of, like that business has to be a force for good, and like really like underline that going into business is not just the economic model, but it's really about providing good to the community, as well as sharing that vision of shared responsibility, which is really in the very root of business, is really how it started. But somehow, I guess, through decades, through centuries, we kind of lost our way. And in fact, I guess this whole with the pandemic, it has exposed a lot of lost ways in our lives, in the way we've created systems. And I guess what I wanted to discuss today with all of you is really, everyone is, we've been on lockdown, we've been on quarantine for almost 7. We haven't gotten back to normal. And for me, I'm just so a little worried that while we have compressed our lives into the little spaces that we've created in the past 7 months, once a vaccine has been discovered, it's going back to our old ways. And this is something, it's like we've wasted the 7 months or 8 months that's supposed to have gotten us to a realization. How would each one of you try to stem that tide towards going back to the usual, and really like understanding that maybe there is a need for a degrowth, and a redefining, as you all have mentioned, redefining the future. I mean, on a personal level. Let's start with Dan.
Rhea. Okay. Actually, before the pandemic, we are well on our way to really work hard on the sustainability commitment, which we have been on since the 90s, the early 90s, when we discovered irregularities in the supply chain. And then, of course, we moved from being reactive to proactive. And then what the pandemic did was for us to accelerate our plans, so that after this, when this is all over, and we hope it will happen soon, we can continue to redesign value, but not redesigning growth. Like what I said earlier, it's about what value are we giving, not just to the company, but also to the people making our products, to everyone else involved in the value chain. Meaning, or in layman's term, we make sure that every hand profits. But of course, being a big company, we even if we are one of the largest retailers in the world, we cannot do it on our own. We need the collaboration of other brands, the collaboration with governments, it needs the citizens, science, policy, and businesses to hold hands together and walk in the same direction. Because let's say, for example, no matter how great our plans are, if the policy is limiting us to do something, then that would create the barrier not just for the policy making, but also for citizens to also go in the direction we want them to.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Dan. Tomas?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that there are, different ways of looking at this. Like one is the fact that you matter of the pandemic. I think that doesn't eliminate the bigger wave that is coming behind, which is climate change. No, well, first of all, it's like there's the economic. I think the how to read the economy, and not as it was, but also following principles probably. And the other one is how we're going to deal with some effects that we have put on the planet that are already there. I mean, there are. It's kind of creating an industry of things that is not like even if we stop now everything that actually is polluting or is really contributing to the increase of the temperature of the planet, we still need to deal with the consequences of these 250 years. So I think that we won't have another chance. See this as a small training that we are doing. It's kind of a warming up in order to incorporate, in the everyday life. This capacity for us to respond to change, also to rethink fundamental transformation, things that assume that they are dogmas or truth, right? Like I usually speak to people in Spain, like if you animal-based protein from the menu of a Spanish person, is kind of almost like a sacrilege, no? Or it's kind of it could be burn alive. So, but of meat probably is going to need us to basically reduce considerably that. So, and then the second one, I much agree with Dan, is like thinking about what is value, no? And I think here Mariana Mazzucato has done an incredible job on her book called The Value of Everything, and also trying to explain what are the value of things that we actually assign value in the everyday, and starting from our currencies, no? So even if it sounds crazy, how we reinvent a very old technology like currencies, like money, make more representative of the real value that things have. Those are big questions, no? And then finally, I think that the degrowth approach is quite interesting, and I remember a few discussions and videos by someone called Jason Hickel. Probably you have read about him, but I think that what we call degrowth is not. Sometimes people think about it negatively, but actually it's really calibrating, no, in what we really need, what is really the bare minimum that we need in order to have a meaningful life. And this is something that goes back to a discussion before, no?
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, like the past months have really shown us the little that we need, or the essential things that we need to lead a good life. I mean, really the realization that, there are some the brainwashing that has also happened in, what we need in our lives. And, that is the positive side to having this space, this pause, to really redefine what the value of a good life. So Jax, what about you in Singapore?
So maybe I start from my personal conviction following the last 9 months, is that I could consume less, less, and I can also fly less often. And it has proven in 9 months that it's possible not to fly so often. My carbon footprint has dropped drastically for this year. Well, from the council's perspective, I think one thing we will kind of step on the pedal is really about supporting our designers to think about the future and the potential possibilities that can come through this, and to help them prototype and to demonstrate the alternatives. I think the alternatives must be demonstrable so that people know and people can see what else can they do, right? Post-pandemic. And I think the messaging has to be kind of continual. Yeah.
Correct, correct. Wonderful. Yeah, because I mean, like the history of design was really in, like at the start of the Industrial Revolution, where the whole model is for mass production. I mean, like the model of industrial design is really to make everything for everyone. So this whole, again, putting it into discussion and really an honest discussion on what design is, and like what you're doing with your good design initiative of really, again, taking the conversation on design and redefining design to address need and societal would really have a big impact in this future that we're redesigning, so to speak, no? So Reese, yes, for art.
And personally, I guess, because I think, your question on what if when the pandemic happened, I started reading up on the Spanish flu of the flu of 1918, just for fun, because I thought, I wasn't sad enough to another pandemic of our lifetime. So I up on that and realized that there's so many things that we forgot from that time. So many practices that happened that we didn't do. Just the way it is, to the more convenient things. And I think it's very difficult to remember, but at the same time, it's possible. We are at a time where technology is advanced and could be even more advanced. But now, it's easier to remember. Social media is there. There are ways to sit on the internet and it pops up. Hopefully, it's not fake news. But this time is actually a good time to remember all of these. And I think what we wouldn't forget, and I hope we wouldn't forget, is that one, we are vulnerable. Even if a vaccine is out, there could be a new virus that comes out. It's just, we're vulnerable. We're not superhuman. We're not indispensable. We're not immortals. Sometimes we ransack the planet as if we are, and as if it's infinite. But I think this pandemic has taught us that we're not. Aside from realizing that we don't need a lot to survive and exist, and have a meaningful life. So I think there are two ways that we can hopefully create a better future and not forget. One is behavioral and one is systemic. Behavioral is so hard because it assumes that we're going to influence everyone to change their behavior so that we don't get to another pandemic of this level, or we don't get to the really catastrophic event, climate change. So behavioral, I think, who can help there would be artists, performers, culture. But what can also influence behavior are systems. So if we can help designers, like what Jax mentioned, help designers of systems to create better systems that would build incentives and incentives or punishments or things like that would encourage us to create better businesses, to live better lifestyles. And if not, there are also some penalties that we can face. Because, and we all know this, we have all tried to diet at some point in our lives, right? Because we know it's good for us. But we don't always do what's good for us. We need some sort of incentive, some sort of nudge us to a better place. So I think it's both behavior and system, and design has a lot to do with it.
Thank you, Reese. Thank you. I think Rags to Riches is really a postcard, your postcard to the Philippines and to the world of that kindness is a key value in business, and we thank you for that, no? And for showing the way to a lot of the social enterprises that are also popping, coming up in the Philippines. And yeah, so one of my since I'm coming from the Department of Trade and Industry, and and the economic side has really also been a big worry. Like just in this whole the pandemic, it's a question of health, safety, and then the economy. And like the problem with the small businesses. It's really the small businesses, really, which is the fabric, the social fabric of a lot of the communities, and a lot of like, and it's not just in the Philippines but throughout the world. They're the ones that are being hit, and some of them may not survive as against the bigger corporation. How, I mean, like, how do you this whole the notion of the corporation against the small businesses and entrepreneurship, how do we marry that these new two worlds that are now slowly becoming more separate, or like one is really like lording over the big one? Reese, I guess this is more a question to you, because you have a cooperation now with a big global corporation, and they're
I think there are ways to be able to marry the two worlds together, because even if we tell ourselves that we're two worlds, we just live in one world. So really, we don't have any choice but to work together and collaborate, because we need like a concerted effort to make this thing happen. So for IKEA, for example, and Rags to Riches, I think it was an intentional decision on both ends to really work together. Like, it's not easy for a big corporation to look at small enterprises and say we could have a partner in that small corporation, because there are many inefficiencies in between those systems that are hard to marry. There's so many like documentary requirements of big companies that small companies cannot really afford, and they don't have the manpower to. So there are some adjustments that needed to be made on both sides. But I think it came with intention. It came from the top, actually. So it came from the leaders of the companies, and their determination to really work together. And so now, us working with IKEA Philippines is becoming a model for other IKEAs that are coming up everywhere in the world to also work with grassroots communities or social enterprises for their sewing services. And I think that's a great model to follow. This is the kind of model that we want everyone to copy. So we're very happy with it. But I think it has to come from the top, and it has to be very intentional. It doesn't happen by accident.
Thank you, Reese. I guess the last question before, I guess, I know, Kay, you have to go into the questions of the people that are with us in this meeting. Tomás, you mentioned something about indigenous community, indigenous knowledge, and that is something that, like, I really is an area that is of great interest to me and the Philippines, because we have a lot of indigenous people communities in the Philippines. In the 7,000 over, I know you're in Indonesia, but like in the Philippines, we have over 7,000 islands. But like, indigenous wisdom indeed is one of the most important resources that's available to a country, and it's really that knowledge of just the cycle of life, and like just a knowledge of sustainability that is embedded in how many generations of living in this earth. How do you what is your plan to connect that? I mean, being in Bali, and is this something that we can also bring that discipline here in the Philippines?
Well, no, thank you for asking that. And, without pretending to be an expert in indigenous technologies, I have to say that is part of, I think, the evolution of our work. I think that I was trying to put in my presentation that, beyond the personal, I think the personal condition, like I am from Latin America, it's also, there's a very rich indigenous culture, or has been a very rich indigenous culture, and has been a very also aggressive process of colonization for the last 500 years. That journey also relates with the fact that incorporating digital fabrication technologies with almost all technology, it has this double-edged sword kind of thing. It can help to really nurture that diversity and use the adaptability. And Jack was talking about this pavilion that every single piece was different, right? That's something that you can achieve with digital fabrication technologies and with not so much increase of cost, for instance, no? But also manufacturing technologies can be used to reduce or synthesize cultural diversity expressed in products, expressed in art, expressed in knowledge, in things that are just ones and zeros, right? Or it's just reduced to rectangular angles, no? So one of the things that I have been learning here for my personal journey is that first of all, it's not only about the colonization of territories and culture, but it's also the colonization of mind. So it's important for us to start decolonize ourselves. And that means that adopting and assuming that there is diversity that can be incorporated in the world that we do, and also learn to do things differently, and which means unlearning certain things as well, right? So what we want to do here in Bali, I have 3 more partners. I cannot disclose their name. I have to ask them for permission first. But they are very influential people here in Bali and in Indonesia. With them, we are founding the Bali Meaningful Design Group. So this will be a learning space, to be honest. I think that the approach also for working with this type of knowledge, and also to I think acknowledging that we need to relearn certain things, it starts also for putting the approach in what you're doing with the same values. Means that we don't come with a formula and trying to impose it, no? So I would love to really share, Rhea, and also with Botch and all the community in the Philippines, we are really curious also not understanding this as something regional, no? In the Asian countries, I think that we should start from learning new things together, sharing those experiences, and the work that we will do here in Bali is for sure going to be open source, and for sure it's going to be available for collaboration with the region, and then to South America, hopefully.
Great, marrying your continents. So, Kate, do you want to go to some of the questions of the people
I'd
that
like to read out some questions on the floor because we've got people sending them in.
Yes.
Okay, this is for Dan. They're interested to know about the plastic bag versus paper bag effects that you talked about. Could you get into more detail with that? Because I think that sparked
Sure.
some consciousness somehow.
Okay, that's an interesting question. Compared to plastic bags, paper bags actually emit 51% more global warming gases. They create 50 times more water pollution. They use 4 times more raw materials and consumes 2 times more energy. And unlike plastic bags, once you've used paper bags, they're unlikely to be reused, especially here in the Philippines when our weather are either both rainy or sunny. And so even if they are recycled, they cause emissions and waste while we truck them to a new processing center to reprocess them and then also truck them back to be used again. At the same time, did you know that 80% of all paper bags are landfill? And they often do not biodegrade for decades, perhaps hundreds of years, because of a lack of oxygen. And then bag for bag, they actually cost more to landfills because they take up more space by weight and volume. Every government study said that neither plastic nor paper bags, but reusable bags to be by far the best choice for the environment.
Okay, that's really great. Thank you for that. Everyone, I hope you kept that in mind. So this one goes to Mr. Yo. Very briefly, what were the resistances you experienced when implementing a long-haul program for the community?
For long-haul programs, maybe I start with opportunity first. With long haul program, I think the opportunity is that the people that's in charge and the people who are your stakeholders, they changes. So even if you meet somebody who may not be your advocate, along the way you'll find someone that actually could be your mouthpiece, actually to deliver what you intended to deliver. So the opportunity of a long haul project is that we get to use the time to develop relationships, right? And with those relationships, we are able to push some of the agenda with more people backing us. So the resistant part of it will be that some of this relationship or personality changes, right? And then that's where we have to recycle and rework the entire engagement for long haul projects. But I think it's worthwhile to embark on a long haul project because the kind of results that you see is in a way has got a little bit more permanent change. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
I think to a certain extent, I think, Jack, that's also related to a redefinition of time and gratification. I mean, again, it's a redefinition of the systems that we have in our lives, that everything doesn't have to be instant. I mean, and the concept of convenience, right? I mean, there are a lot of things that we need to take into consideration these days when we think of, again, instant. I mean, just our instant lives, and then and what it costs the planet, the people that are involved in providing you that instant gratification.
True.
That's right. Thanks for that. This is for Tomás. Did you ever come up against players in the industry, I suppose they mean big players, who did not appreciate the independence that Fab Lab making is giving its users?
Yeah, I was responding before to that question by text, but my connection broke. So, well, first of all, I was saying that for some companies, I think especially large companies, some of them, even 3D printing companies, big companies, they see that the maker movement is something that some people do in their weekends, and it's like a hobby, you know? And I think that this, in a way, has been like a bad reputation built also by the maker community itself, because a lot of the times we just have like people just tinkering or doing very weird things that are totally for their own pleasure somehow, no? But it's also true that that perception has changed a lot in the last few years. In 2016, we did a big collaboration with IKEA, IKEA Global. And so we brought some of the IKEA designers from Sweden, as well as some product managers and sustainability managers to Barcelona, in total like 30 people. And we organized the Made Again Challenge, which tried to influence somehow internally how IKEA was perceiving their model, their business in the future, right? In the future of distributed manufacturing and distributed design. The thing is, like IKEA is a company that they own almost all the verticals of the business, right? From forest to retail stores and all whatever that is in between. The question is that in this, in this distributed design and manufacturing world, IKEA that now owns warehouses outside the cities where products come in flat packed, then people buy them, they transport them to their houses and become part of the assembly line of IKEA. In the future of distributed manufacturing, probably citizens become part of the IKEA design team. So that's, and then instead of having warehouses, IKEA owns flexible factories and material processing facilities inside the cities. No, so this kind of open up or kind of inspirational exercises is something that we have been doing more and more, especially from Fab Lab Barcelona. And just a couple of weeks ago, we finished a workshop with Nestlé. We're organizing with Red Bull Spain the Red Bull Basement program. So I believe that companies are looking at what we're doing as something that can inspire them. But I really want to see something that comes not only from the marketing and the CSR, let's say, departments of companies. I want to collaborate with the research and production departments, and that's something that probably is going to happen soon.
bringing design and sustainability rather into the level of design, not just falling onto consumers. That's a great answer. Miss Lucita McElroy asks, I read an article that there are a number of H&M retail stores that are filing bankruptcy across Europe, North America, and wait a second. Hang on. And parts of Asia due to the pandemic. H&M is one of the high-end retail stores where consumers love to shop for quality products. Closing of stores affects the manufacturers and suppliers. How the company is able to stay in the market, hence it affects the economy globally.
First of all, I'm not sure where you read about the bankruptcy, but that is not true. We did close, and we are continuing to close 250 of our stores globally. So we have about 5,000. And then during the height of the pandemic, during the height of the lockdown globally, of course, we had to close about 80% of our stores. But then they were reopened as the economy also eased, as the quarantine measures eased in different parts of the world. Now, the 250 stores that we are planning to close is because of our transformation journey. We want to be omni now, and that means we want to have our customers experience seamless shopping within and between our online and offline channels. So that's part of the strategy. In fact, we're coming back to profit this quarter 3. So this is it's a good sign that hopefully we will be on the road to recovery. We are not yet. Until the vaccine is administered in everyone, we will not be. But we are gaining momentum now, and hopefully this continues. And then when it comes to the supplier and manufacturers, definitely it's an ecosystem. When you it's an ecosystem basically. When you cut something, it affects everyone else. So, but H&M, the H&M Group, we are a very responsible client and buyer. So unlike other companies and brands who have renegotiated their orders with the companies and the brands when the lockdown was extreme during the months of March, April, and May, we did not renegotiate with them. We continued and honored our order so that we can continue to support the workers in the supply chain.
That's absolutely very noble of you. And this is something that bigger companies and production entities would do very well to write into their own books. This is for Miss Reese. How did you find your backers or stakeholders to believe in your dream, especially since it initially is counterintuitive? Did you rely on grants from institutions?
So we're 13 years old, right? So we have relied on so many things in the past. Like in the beginning, it was definitely grants. And I think I'd like to correct the my dream part, because if you just ask people to back your dream, it's gonna be very difficult if you don't produce like profit right away or like big returns. But if you're able to get to a collective dream, like all of your co-founders, your funders, your backers, they all have the same goal as you, then you are all going towards the same direction. So that's the thing with Rags to Riches. It wasn't my thing. It was a thing created by a group of co-founders with a group of companies and people who have been there from the start and really supporting the company. So we started definitely with grants and donations, because having an inclusive supply chain is, as was mentioned in the question, counterintuitive, because you want your supply chain to be as efficient as possible, and having an inefficient supply chain would mean higher costs. And so we had higher costs in the beginning. We had to build our capacity, and we had to train our artisans to become better and better in production and product development, until you find ourselves now in the present, and we are just like funded by our sales and by our by our sales, literally. So for me, it's such a great journey, because in the beginning, when it was difficult, we had the support of like-minded individuals. We still do up to now, but eventually we had to make it make sense on its own as well. Because otherwise, if it just keeps bleeding, then it's not much of a model that other people can follow. And they'd say, it's not a sustainable model, so why are we going to do it? And if more people don't do it, then that's not really good for anyone, not good for the communities. It's a wasted opportunity. So for us, it was a responsibility to be able to get to this point.
Wonderful. Thank you for answering that. We are running a little bit out of time, and there are still questions here. So what we're going to do is the team is going to send them to the speaker so that you guys can answer in your own time, and we will be posting the answers on our social media entities as part of our follow-through initiative. So they can see the questions there, and you guys can answer at your own pace, at your own time. All right. May I invite Ms. Rhea Matute to please synthesize everything for us, including.
So well, of course, I wanna thank Dan, Tomás, and Reese for the afternoon of again sharing and again underlining the purposes of your various initiatives. I think there is definitely a thread that connects all the initiative is really again about redefinition of the way we do things, from the business models to redefining how we learn, how we make things, to redefining even just what Jack is doing, like redefining design, and again with Reese in redefining or going back, not forgetting the real essence of businesses. And I think this the discussion that we're having about rethinking the future and emerging future is really about that. It's about we are now given this opportunity to redefine, to again and reset how we're doing things, and the inspiration that has been provided by both by all four of Dan, Tomás, Jack, and Reese is really a start of the discussion of how we are going to emerge out of the pandemic and continue on this journey, and not forget again and not forget that this is really a unique opportunity for all of us to be able to have a better normal, and also for a gift to our future generation, that we can have them get the freedom, I guess, of not being trapped in the dogma of old definitions, but creating a new normal, a better normal post-pandemic. So thank you, Dan, thank you, Tomás, thank you, Jack, and thank you, Reese, for the wonderful insights and inspiring us into the future, into the emerging future.
Thank you, Ms. Rhea. That has been Rethinking Tomorrow, Emerging Futures. I hope you all learned as much as I did. We have come to the conclusion of Cebu Design Week, the Great ReCREATE. We listened to talks that gave us insight on how our creative community is doing during these challenging times. And we had talks that we hope inspired all of you and gave you direction on how to navigate the new normal. We began with individuals and their case studies, moved on to communities, moved on to institutions, and moved on to pathfinders, charting the way forward. To formally close Cebu Design Week, the Great ReCREATE, here with us today is the officer in charge of the Philippine National Commission for UNESCO. And I would like everyone to help me welcome Undersecretary Ernesto Abella to deliver his message.
Maayong adlaw, Cebu. Cebu has always stood out as a vibrant, energetic, confident, and innovative hub of enterprise, music, craft, and creativity. Related industries may ebb and flow depending on the mood of the times and events beyond the reach of human control, like the current pandemic. But the collective soul of a people compels them to rise above their circumstances. Segue to Cebu Design Week 2020 and its formidable theme, the Great ReCREATE. Basically, it seeks to assess and reevaluate creatives at large and how design and the arts are essential in moving a people forward. My message today includes government perspectives. Increasingly, people are rediscovering that plants, philosophy, and the arts and crafts provide much needed refuge in a time of deep mental stress. But creativity is wider and more inclusive and can provide a matrix for deepening and wide and enlarging economies. Witness the Korean phenomenon. Part of their soft or cultural diplomacy is the promotion of Korean values and heritage, even food and snacks, through film, music, and gastronomy, aside from their hard economy of cars, ships, and technological innovations. Witness how Filipinos love things Korean, even though they may have reservations about the people themselves. At the end of the day, the promotion of culture does not just provide economic prosperity, but social capital and goodwill that will allow us greater influence in the community of nations. The larger picture. Though we are gathered today for Cebu Design Week, it is also an opportune time to discuss the larger picture. Or as Congressman De Venecia said this morning, the need for a master plan. In the real world of international politics, nations advance by force or they flourish through influence. So it's either force or influence. What we lack in hard power, we can make up for through soft power or cultural diplomacy. For that to work, we need to decide what aspect of ourselves as Filipinos do we want to promote. We will need to sit down and decide what it is that other nations appreciate us for, because we indeed are appreciated. What we need is a plan that will help us be proud of our identities and inspire to recreate ourselves to ensure sustainability, in the words of Kong Toff. Germany is known for technology. Japan is known for quality. China prospered because of their cheap manufacturing. America became a world power because of its reputation for democracy, wealth, and military might. Israel for its innovation. The Philippines for its care and services. Cebu itself was known for its beautiful furniture, an example of creative services. We need now to own enough space in the minds of our intended audiences and market, part of which we already do, which will be triggered each time they encounter a need, a creative need. Let us remember the first rule of marketing. We do not talk about our qualities. We always push the benefit that we provide the market. Baguio and Cebu have entered into that space, but it needs to be expanded. The Philippine government, through UNESCO National Commission and the initiatives of the legislative, like Congressman Toff de Venecia and his companions, and the likes of former Senator, now Congresswoman Lauren Legarda, who seek to empower the creatives, the communities, and the cities who recognize the need to support the crucial but fragile creative industries, including the MSMEs. Therefore, to end and to encapsulate, let me emphasize the message of UNESCO Director General for Culture, Ernesto Otone Ramirez, his message for creative cities, and he says, he encourages everyone to seize the moment, to focus on the new possibilities that this pandemic brings towards transforming ourselves into resilient, socially inclusive, and green communities. Traditionally, the UNESCO Creative Cities Network covers 7 creative fields: crafts and folk art, design, film, gastronomy, literature, media, arts, and music. Given that the Cebu community has already gone this path, the question now would be, how will these efforts be sustained? Today, the 7 includes resiliency, social inclusivity, and environmental concerns, which can translate into a quadruple bottom line. Ms. Reese talked about people and planet. May I suggest to expand it? People, planet, profit, and spirit. Because truly, if the creative aspect is emphasized, it can minister to people and strengthen them. Unacom stands ready to support our collective efforts in enriching our identity and your identity as a designated UNESCO Creative City of Design, but not just Cebu, but the nation as well. And we pray and hope and pray that we will get through this situation that we are in, where the world has come to a stop. And we pray that the creative arts and the creative communities and the creative forces will be a source of breaking through. And we look forward to this. Thank you. Blessings.
Thank you very much for that, Yusek Abelia. Thank you so much for your support. I would like to invite everyone who is listening right now to walk away from the Cebu Design Week seminars invigorated and inspired and ready to tell the stories of your community and make their and your lives better. Don't forget to check out and submit your entries for the Blue Mango Awards. There's about 200,000 prize money on this, so translate your works to craft and get making. Let's check out this video for
In our day and age, design is everywhere, and creativity can be found in everyone.
To celebrate this fact, and to help creatives remain peso-tive,
This year's Blue Mango Awards will pivot into timely and relevant categories that emphasize creativity in our daily lives and encourage productivity while in quarantine.
over 200,000 pesos in cash prizes await the 24 winners, which will be announced in December 2020.
The new deadline is now set for November 25, 2020. Entries are open to anyone from the Visayas. For more info, please visit our site or email us at the address indicated below. We would like to thank Cebu Landmasters and Smart Communications for their generous support. We look forward to receiving your entries. Thank you, stay safe, and stay creative.
As a way to make urban acupuncture, as Butch said earlier this morning, more ubiquitous, submit your entries and let your friends join in as well. Plantitas, plantitos, and our home cooks have a category all for themselves. Don't miss our FB Live this Saturday on the 31st of October, 10 a.m. It will be the closing for Cebu Design Week, the Great ReCREATE. There will be a fireside chat to discuss everything that we have learned during the 3-day design summit and how these insights can help us foster a vibrant and dynamic creative economy in the new normal. And we will have a keynote address by Yusek Ernesto Abelia of the UNESCO Philippines National Commission. Thank you all for attending. Tag us on your social media posts. Please look out for our answers to your questions. And let us all connect, create, cultivate. See you.
In our day and age, design is everywhere, and creativity can be found in everyone.
To celebrate this fact, and to help creatives remain peso-tive,
This year's Blue Mango Awards will pivot into timely and relevant categories that emphasize creativity in our daily lives and encourage productivity while in quarantine.
over 200,000 pesos in cash prizes await the 24 winners, which will be announced in December 2020.
The new deadline is now set for November 25, 2020. Entries are open to anyone from the Visayas. For more info, please visit our site or email us at the address indicated below. We would like to thank Cebu Landmasters and Smart Communications for their generous support. We look forward to receiving your entries. Thank you, stay safe, and stay creative.
Siguro ninyo mi mga grado, diha mo na sayot kami masidukado. Kitang tanan gusto nga mo maayo, pwede ra panindot tayo, diri lang magsuya ay.
Kung sports ang atong istoryaan, sa basketball Bisaya dili malupigan. Ernest boxing champion kita permi ang number 1, pinakasikat the best si Pacman.
Sige lang mong ingon na mong dila kay gahe, suya lang mo amo ang pinakagahe. Among braso ba pinakagahe, pero kasi na mo humok di siya gahe.
Bisaya ko, inispermo ko. Bisaya ko, I'm proud na Bisaya ko. Buutan ko, Bisaya ko. Inisperto ko, I'm proud na Bisaya ko. Sa Bisaya ka, hindi ni malupikan, mga buutan ng inyong masaligan. Sa Miss Balls ang buwang audiensan, ikisama tipolo mas bati yung piligan.
Daghan kaayo mga nindot nga suruyan, kami king Surigao, Siquijor o Kagusan. Bumagit ni Cebu, Davao, San Carlos o Cagayan, magpangitadjud ka kung imong matuan.
Kung gusto ka mami na maayo nagkanta, daghan kaayo labi na mga Cebuana. Maayo mo saya budo sa guban pa, perting kusuga muki ay umuzumba. Bisaya ko, inispeto ko. Bisaya ko, I'm proud na Bisaya ko. Buutan ko, Bisaya ko. Inispeto ko, I'm proud na Bisaya ko.
Kami mga Bisaya, isugong na ay prinsipyo. Dili mahadlok bisakin sa ay lang ilaptin ninyo. Anda mo tabang mo sabot, og mo serbeso. Kaliwat mini dagoy, og ni lapu-lapu.
Inyong bugal-bugalan, sa ngano-ngano man. Kita puro Pilipino, ngano ni pag-away. Magpanagiusa o pagkuswag ang atong ipatuman. Dapat magsinaptanay, dili magdinautay.
Itang tanan naning kamot para sa kaayuan. Bisag lisod buhaton aron ang kalinaw matagampangan. I know why there's so much hate all the time. Stop the hate, yo, spread peace and love for the motherland.
Bisaya ko, inispeto ko. Bisaya ko, I'm proud na Bisaya ko. Buutan ko, Bisaya ko. Inispeto ko, I'm proud na Bisaya ko. Bisaya ko, I'm proud na Bisaya